Hi everyone, it's Kasia from Tarot Map, and I thought I'm going to do a little video on reading negative cards in positive positions. So when I mean negative cards, there are some cards in tarot. I believe, first of all, disclaimer, that each card, good or bad, has both aspects to itself. So to me, tarot cards, none of the tarot cards are just good or just bad. So in this aspect, this video will speak about finding the positive aspects of the so-called negative card, like, Three of Swords or Five of Swords or Five of Coins. Usually the fives are quite demanding because they at the crisis point, or a card like Eight of Swords or Three of Swords, Ten of Swords. So I noticed when I was learning tarot that it was quite difficult for me to connect when I used a spread, let's say, and I said, embrace this, or it said the position was start doing this, and you get like Ten of Swords. It's like, what do I have to start doing now? How can I twist the even a negatively looking image into something positive that I might need to start doing? So I thought I'm just going to describe a few examples, because recently I did a reading for a client, and that kind of came up when, I usually don't use like certain position in spreads, but in one particular reading I did. And it was start and stop doing, and I got to start doing a Five of Swords. And I'm showing you the images from Ember and Aura Tarot, so it's not the traditional images that you are used to, and they kind of peepish, but you can use Rider-Waite-Smith or Marseille deck or any type of deck. It doesn't matter, because really these cards are usually, if it's a tarot system, they're never going to be the happy cards. So let's start with this Five of Swords. So what we're seeing on the card in this particular image, so always, also this is like a teaching video, so always pay attention to the image that you actually are working with. Yes, you can learn what Five of Swords in general means, and you can remember all the meanings, but the art of intuitive reading and art of using the image and how the image makes you feel, it comes with practice, and it's really an important aspect to being able to be free with your readings and reading and practice reading many different decks, or practice reading different systems, so pay attention to what you see on the image. So on this image we see a hand, and it's holding a heart with an eye, so it's like the heart is seeing, but this heart is pierced by Five Swords. So usually in traditional tarot deck, in Rider-Waite-Smith image, our Five of Swords is shown by, a one person collecting all the swords, and two other people kind of in the background, beaten up with, hanging heads, are walking away. And it's usually called like an unfair win situation, winning something with not a very clear way. So there can be involved some form of dishonesty, when we're not showing our whole truth, when we're trying to win for all costs, when maybe we're not playing fair towards the other person. So fives is some kind of crisis point. In this particular aspect, we see that we can add also this layer of not being able to acknowledge our true emotions. So either we ourselves are not able to listen to our hearts, so heart as a symbol of our emotional self. So maybe our thinking, well, we feel like we want to do something, but our mind and, let's say, our logical explanation is not acknowledging those desires, and it's constantly saying, no, you can't do it, you're not good enough. Or maybe you have a partner who always, I don't know, cuts off your wings, or you come up with an idea, or you have a parent who doesn't want you to be an artist because they want you to be a lawyer. These are all the kind of words we speak, thoughts we think, and everything that kind of comes with this idea of not being able to acknowledge, at least, to what we truly want and what we value in life. So in some way, making that a positive statement, we could twist it around. So we could say, pay attention right now to not overriding your heart's desires with your logical thinking. It's good to have both. That's why we have a heart and a brain. Nobody says never use your brain. Of course, use your logic, ask questions, analyze, but sometimes, especially in our society, it's so much more valued than anything else. And that receptive, beautiful, heartfelt, emotional intelligence, it's not being valued as much. So we could say, start value this intelligence, start seeing with your heart, and also start being aware of where in your life you put those thoughts into your heart. Start really being honest with yourself. You can't avoid it anymore because this heart sees, you see it now. So either find where in your situation you can be present to that suffering, and as much, sometimes the awareness itself might be enough to introduce some form of change or integration. Sometimes that could be also realizing our own limits. Where are our limits? Where are our limitations? Sometimes it can mean just pay attention to where you may be not being honest with others, because that might be your heart, or it might be somebody else's heart that you personally put, thoughts in. But as I see thoughts as the air element, like traditional Rider-Waite Smith, and to me, these are, each one of those thoughts can be a word, what we speak. Words are magical. They have power. They carry certain vibration, and we create with our words. Or thought, and thought is the layer to the word. So sometimes on the thinking level, we might think, fuck you, I hate you. But when you speak it, it's even like a double ammunition, it's already much closer to manifesting that. So sometimes it's better to shut up. And sometimes you have to speak up, because otherwise you constantly find yourself maybe in a situation when you see and you find that you let other people walk over you. So tarot speaks more directly when we have a question. When we don't have a question or certain situation, we can speak volumes about it, and each card can be talked about for many hours probably, because that's how deep tarot can be, and how much we can actually how much life experience and life situations we can attach to every one of these images. So Five of Swords in the positive way would be, try to be honest with yourself, realize if there is dishonesty in your life, pay attention to what thoughts or what words are hurting you. Are they coming from your own being, or are you surrounded maybe by people who totally don't appreciate your heart and what you truly want or who you truly are? How can you stand up for yourself and be honest with those people without playing their game? And how can you find courage to see with your heart and allow this emotional intelligence to actually guide you, rather than constantly override it with logic and science, and never give yourself any space for magical thinking or creative thinking. Another card that is usually seen as quite a negative is the Ten of Swords. So here we have a 5. So 5 is usually in the middle of the project or in the middle of the process. It comes after 4, after the stability or certain type of satisfaction is achieved, and then the 5 comes in to disrupt that stability, because it's not the end yet, and we have to still readjust and reform to move us to the 10. So here when we are at the 10, we know that this is the end, like it can't go any worse. So how can we make that image a positive one? And that would be also, I don't want to sound like every image is positive, but I definitely stand by the opinion that every image can be positive or negative, can be seen in the more positive way or more negative way. So the Ten of Swords as the more positive way would be that, yeah, it can be any worse. That's it. Like, you arrived at the plateau, you can't go any lower. You visited Ereshkigal, you have been, killed, you have been betrayed, you have been beaten and knocked down, and each of these swords can be a situation, a word, a breakthrough, a break up, any fuck ups that you could have gone through, and you really surrender right now. This person's kind of dead. So in Ten of Swords, from the more positive perspective, we can encourage someone to actually let go and have faith that this is transforming right now. Also, Ten of Swords is a card of really realizing that we are at the turning point. And I think when you face death, like here, you gain some wisdom, and you gain some detachment, and you gain some understanding of what it is that you have to let go of. Here, this person doesn't hold onto the swords. She's really like kind of releasing. So often Ten of Swords speaks about release and about leaking off, either the energy. We might feel really tired, we might feel overstressed. So we would kind of want to turn it around and say, pay attention to your thinking. So when your mind is really busy, so busy that you overworked, you like on the edge of, you feel like you're going insane, the only thing you can do, you can go back from 10 to 1 of the swords. So prioritize, release pressure, allow yourself to really finish off or complete certain amount of suffering or certain process of suffering that you were going through. So the Ten of Swords usually is a welcome sign when you are going through a hardship, a breakup, a shithole, losing jobs and stuff, because that actually shows that the end is coming and it's really near. And all you can do, you can just run with it. You cannot stop it now. You cannot make it feel better. Just face your suffering in a way, face those swords. But also it can mean that you are transforming right now, and you have the possibility to transform and gain more clarity from this suffering. So in a way, it's like making the best out of the shitty situation. And this is not going to be a happy party, but as I said, the worst is over, and you are nearly at the end. You will be ready to transform, and the transformation will come from realizing, also gaining awareness of what really hit you. And this Ten of Swords can be like this encouragement to release as much as you can and stop struggling, stop making it want it better, making it want to make it better. Just release the pressure. So maybe the last card that I pick, let's make it Eight of Swords. So we stay with the swords because this is usually the hardship suit in tarot traditionally. So here we see this person who is kind of behind, like in jail. It's not free to go out. There we see the hands hanging out. We can't even see the face. There is a little bird here, so it's like a cage, but we don't know. We don't see the walls. We see the sun shining behind this, so we're not sure. But with Eight of Swords, finding the positive solution, often it can be that we need to turn around to see the sun. So often it can be in our heads. It can be maybe not irrational, but it can be when we often in situation when we feel we can, like there is no choice or there is no decision that we can make to leave, or we feel just stuck, like we definitely feel stuck. And that's when our mind goes into this kind of fearful mode that we don't know what we can do. We feel like there is no exit from our shitty situation. This Eight of Swords often means, listen, there is always a choice. there is always a way to find, even if you cannot change your situation, to change your attitude, to turn around and see that there is maybe a little bird that sits there, see the little signs in life. And Eight of Swords often can mean, I love this image in Anna Kay Tarot, and there is this beautiful image of a woman standing and seeing her kind of jailed image in the mirror. That often we think there is no way, often we focus on the worst solution, often we don't see that we can move a little bit left or a little bit right. We kind of like, head into the wall, we hit our head in the same spot, and we don't see that 2 meters to the right there is a solution. So it can be a little bit more like, stop criticizing yourself so much. It can speak about being really fearful, so releasing this fear and focusing on the heart energy, and trying to see around if there is anything that we maybe haven't noticed yet, that there may be some signs or some solutions to our problem or our issues that we seem as impossible to solve now, but there is always a possibility. So Eight of Swords is usually quite a hard card, and it really requires a strong, every eight requires a strong sense of power and strong sense of finding the strength in the hardship and deciding for yourself that you are able to choose differently. And often it's really just that, the realization that we can choose differently. And it is a card that it's hard maybe to, if we saw this Eight of Swords and saying start doing it, I would just say like to start seeing around ourselves, start noticing that despite the fact that we might be suffering right now, there is still some good around us, and that we can turn around, that we can face the worst that we fear. Often in traditional tarot, this woman which is blindfolded and bound, we say often that you don't see and you don't hear, you don't want to see and you don't want to hear. You feel like you're kind of trapped, but you can take your blindfold off, you can listen, you do have options. So often with this Eight of Swords there is some form of seeing something and not focusing only on our shitty situation, but being able to see and find the strength and courage in ourselves, because it's not easy when you're stuck to see something good. You fucking don't care, you don't see it, and you suffer and you don't see it, and the narrowness of how we feel then, it's very it's like jailing us, it's really binding. So to find courage, to find a little bit of detachment, and a moment even on distraction, to take a look somewhere else around from recreating this suffering and focusing and energizing that stuckness, and trying to maybe break through just for one little sec, that sometimes it's enough to move us forward. So if you like this, let me know how you read seemingly negative cards in the positive aspects, and it would be lovely to have a little conversation about it, because I think it's quite interesting, and especially for beginner tarot readers it might be a challenge how to find your way out of getting your Three of Swords and having to say to a client or to yourself something positive about it. So let's see how you guys go and what you think about it. I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Bye!